Good morning, Derek. I just
Very
want to, okay, yes, I just wanted to confirm that the audio is fine. Requesting we start in about 2 minutes. I see colleagues are here. We promised to start on the top of the hour at 10. So at that time, that's when you're going to start. Let's give additional participants to join in. Then you're going to start webinar. Thank you. You can give me all rights to present. And we'll straight away go into that discussion. Just 2 minutes, then we'll start. Thank you. Colleagues, good morning. I've put the link in the chat for you who are just coming in to start your registration so that we know who is here. I'm glad to see that the number is rising and we're already about 30 colleagues. So please use the link to join the meeting. Thank you. You can send to your colleagues, but also the link is for registration, the one I just put in the chat. We are just right on time. I would like to request my colleagues, Dr. Nicholas and Justine, to actually turn on their microphone for us to start the intros and as well do the pre-briefing, the introductions of who will be taking us through this meeting. Yes. So colleagues, you feel free to turn on your cameras so that our participants are able to see you. It's good that we are catching up on our first webinar, the webinar for media training, especially on clean cooking. So please turn on your cameras. We'll go by the order of presentation. We'll have Dr. Nicholas come in with opening remarks and briefing us about the current project. Then we'll have a presentation from Justine. Then I'll come in to stress on the fact that we need the data and statistics. So Dr. Nicholas, if you can hear me, please turn on your camera. And also, I think we are good to go with our webinar. I'm happy to see you all. My name is Maria Chiza. I'm part of the NREP team, Head of Finance and Corporate Affairs, but also passionate about clean cooking. I'm honored to host this first webinar. It's going to be a series. Let me ask Goretti to share the link again, but on my side, I will not be able to share it now. I'm being assisted by Goretti Nantai, an associate technical officer with the National Renewable Energy Platform. So I have the Deputy National Coordinator with me, that is Dr. Nicholas, and also a colleague from the Clean Cooking Unit, who are gladly joining in to this call. And I would like to invite them for a brief introduction before we go deep down in discussing about the webinar. Dr. Nicholas, you're most welcome, and then followed by Justine with the introductions.
Yes, very good morning, colleagues. I'm on the road. I hope I'm visible and audible. Is that so? Yes, I'm Dr. Nicholas Muksa, and I'm the Deputy National Coordinator for the National Renewable Energy Platform. We are honored to have you on this call, and we are glad that you've expressed interest in learning about clean cooking. And maybe in my opening remarks, I will stretch why this webinar and why it's very important for us to amplify the voice and the crusade on clean cooking. But I'll stop there for now, and I'll give more details when my opportunity comes to give my opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Nicholas. Madam Justine, please come through with your opening greeting. Thank you.
Good morning to you all. My name is Justine Akumu. I work with the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development in the newly constituted National Clean Cooking Unit. And here I serve let me just disconnect it. Yes, I serve as a senior clean cooking officer responsible for supply and demand, and I'm very happy to be a part of this discussion and also to learn how to, work with the media to communicate better and, share the communication and share the work that's being done on clean cooking, given that low access to knowledge and awareness of clean cooking is one of the biggest barriers to adoption. So I hope through this communication and several interventions, we can collaborating solutions. Thank you.
Yes, Justine, thank you so much for that brief introduction. And yeah, I'm glad to say that we received quite a number of colleagues interested in joining this webinar and also being part of the 6 weeks journey that has practical and theory learning. Yeah, to using the power of media to really effect good communication. I would love to invite Dr. Nicholas to offer us the opening remarks before we come to you for your wonderful presentation you've actually prepared prior to this session. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Nicholas.
Thank you very much, Maria. I hope it's okay not to turn on the video again. Yes, as earlier introduced myself, I'm Dr. Nicholas Muksa. I serve as the Deputy National Coordinator at the National Renewable Energy Platform. And for those that may not be familiar with what the National Renewable Energy Platform is, it's a tripartite institution or forum that brings together actors in the renewable energy space, stretching from the government, private, and development partners. And worth noting is that media is one of the key stakeholders in the energy space. And many times, the media fraternity is left behind to only reporting on what has happened. Sometimes I call giving reports on firefighting. The the shortfalls of government, of the key actors in the space. But before one is a journalist, before one embarks on the obligation of reporting news, they are citizens of this country. They have a mandate as individuals. They have a household. They have a home where they belong. And with the space of energy, in particular here cooking, all of us this morning have eaten. I think no one is fasting. And whoever is fasting, at the end of this day will also be breaking that fast. What does that mean? It means we all need some form of energy to prepare that meal. Even if it's a chikomando, we need some bit of fire to fry that chikomando. So we need to take an interest to appreciate how best we can use energy, how best can we report about energy, how best can we be champions of energy. And on our side, we believe that journalists are the voice of the world. This could be my first time, even or even the last time that I will have an audience of 40 or plus media personalities listening to me. But each of the individuals on this call has a big following, has a big audience that reads, that listens to their broadcast, that their writings in the papers, they are reporting on the news. We want to see Uganda as a country, through our media fraternity, take on the obligation and lead the championing of clean cooking, lead the sensitization on the issues emanating from dirty cooking. And I know my colleague Justine will do this subject justice, because clean cooking is not about cooking from a clean kitchen, neither is it about washing your hands and your dishes before you cook. I think Justine will do us justice and break this down to a layman's language for us to understand what entails clean cooking. What are some of the options, alternative or clean cooking technologies available? Which fuels can we use? Which technologies are available? So that our colleagues on the call, and I'm glad this is a series, that we have lessons to learn. There are myths and beliefs that we have to demystify, that things of food cooked on electricity is not tasty, food cooked on gas is not, doesn't get ready, things of this caliber. And as Maria has alluded to, it's both practical and theory. We are planning to have even physical interfaces with you as journalists to take you through these different technologies, demonstrate to you, have first-hand experience of what happens in the clean cooking. We've noticed that elsewhere in other countries like Kenya and the rest of the countries, the journalists are actively championing the clean cooking campaigns. They report about them. Unfortunately, in our country here in Uganda, our media space only reports about what has been delivered to them as extracts, as articles, but not generated by individual journalists. We want to see a pool of journalists that are out there to champion clean cooking, champion environmental aspects of clean cooking, champion healthy aspects of clean cooking, champion monetary or economic issues of clean cooking. So as an institution, as NREP, we hold media as a key partner to ensure that information does not only stop with us, but even trickles down to areas where we've not yet set foot. So we are hoping that through this series, through this campaign with the media personalities, we'll have several articles, several reports on clean cooking. And this does not have to be, it can start with your own experience in your household. How do you cook? What are some of those challenges you're incurring? If you're already practicing clean cooking, what are some of the notable benefits you've so far recorded? It can be a personal story. And I believe at some point we can even do an in-house interview amongst the journalists and the personalities that will be supporting this facilitating this series to further get a deeper appreciation of clean cooking. So I don't want to use more than that, the few minutes I was rendered. I want to allow my other colleague, the key facilitator for the day, Miss Justine, to take the floor and take us through what she has prepared for us. So thank you very much. And I wish all of us the very best of this discussion and this presentation. And I hope at the end, Miss Maria will have a bit of Q&A, an interactive session for us to hear from the colleagues on the other side and also share their views and questions where necessary. Thank you very much. I submit.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nicholas, for those insights. It is good that we've been able to listen from you. Just before Justine comes in, I wanted to take a few minutes on this slide so that you really understand what the behavior change communication is. So recently, this project was launched in partnership with the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, the UK government, and the Modern Energy Clean Cooking Services, an interested national renewable energy platform, and other stakeholders, including the Clean Cooking Unit that has been established under the ministry, where Justine is representing, and then working with the other private sector like UNAC. So basically, what we have here, we have all these partners contributing to the behavior change communication project, which looks at accelerating the adoption of electric cooking technologies in Uganda. We all know that we've been victims of using traditional cooking methods, yet we have goals of reducing environmental degradation. So we know that media has a lot to learn and participate in this behavior change communication campaign, because when we started the initiative last year in August, we did identify key demographics, which we'll present later on in this session. We have, and we want to continue having tailored messages in this communication. And we believe that you as media personnel, because you do interactions on a day-to-day basis, there is a lot you can actually contribute. Then outreaches and engagements where we need the media to really take part and be key. So our outcomes in this project are more of, yes, doing applied monitoring and evaluation, doing knowledge management activities, and also implementing the Renewable Energy Conference, which at your application, we mentioned that actually this would be a very good activity to participate in when we launch it. So why we are training you is preparing you for this transition. We're not saying that transition immediately, but we are saying that it can be a gradual process, and you're going to see the different opportunities, the clean cooking technologies that are going to be presented. Everyone needs to be very active, from households, schools, communities, and the media. You can see here that in this project, we are very keen to have media provide like we have all these different media outlets. So we need to use those outlets to get information out there to these communities, schools, because the targets are really big, and we cannot do it by ourselves as the project implementation team. We have targeting like TV viewership, we're passing through talk shows on the different platforms. I'm glad to tell you that some media houses responded a bit fast, even before the media training, but there's still an opportunity for you to communicate and interact with all this, like us using the media to start the radio adverts, newspaper adverts, and also those people who have independent social media. We're keen to have that. So these presentations will actually be presented to you so that you know how to report on some of these statistics. So allow me for now to end here, stop sharing. Then I will invite my colleague Justine to come in with her presentation. But I just wanted to give you just a visual brief of what we expect and the journey, why we start talking about clean cooking. Then we move back to just the background and see how the transition can be. Over to you, Justine. You're welcome. Would you want me to share your presentation, or you have actual presentation rights as a panelist?
Let me try. I'll prefer to share it. Let me see if I succeed. If I do not, can you see it?
Yes, we confirm we can see the presentation. Please go ahead.
Okay, can you see it in full presentation mode?
Not yet. I believe it's coming through. Yes, it has turned to full presentation mode.
Right. Thank you very much. Once again, my name is Justine Akumu, and I will be making a presentation on Uganda's clean cooking landscape. And here I'll be looking at, again, just unpacking what clean cooking is, what is currently happening, what are the opportunities and challenges that we are facing with the goal of achieving universal access to clean cooking and clean and sustainable cooking in Uganda in the shortest time possible. So what is my presentation the overview of my presentation will be to just provide information on the clean cooking sector. I'll also talk about the policy framework that governs clean cooking and what the national strategy, what strategies government of Uganda is planning to achieve in order to accelerate and achieve universal access to clean cooking. I'll also look at the flagship interventions that government is implementing, and I'll go ahead to speak about the challenges and the opportunities that can arise from, implementing clean cooking solutions. Okay, my presentation is not moving. Maria, can you see my presentation? Hello, hi, Maria.
Yes, it's visible, but yeah, sure, it's not moving. First, try to click next slide.
Okay, we just. Oh, sorry about that. Can you now see my presentation?
Yeah, it's now moving.
Yes, we can. You can just try to move it and see if it will move to the next slide. Then we'll confirm. We're currently on the current status.
Yes, thank you very much. So when we look at the current status of cooking in Uganda, I'd just like to build on what Dr. Nick mentioned. And just provide most of the recent statistics of the UBOS census of 2024, which shows that still the greatest majority of our population is using firewood and charcoal to meet its cooking needs. And what does that mean? That we're talking about households, we're talking about institutions and commercial entities that are using traditional biomass to meet their cooking needs. In addition, we have, and what does that mean? Unfortunately, the utilization of the fuels is met by inefficient cooking solutions. So about the same census report notes that about 6% of the population is using clean and modern cook stoves. Please take note of the words clean and modern, and I hope we'll have an opportunity to unpack and discuss what that actually means. The use of inefficient cooking solutions, such as the three-stone fires and these charcoal sigiris, because they're very inefficient, they emit a lot of smoke, and that smoke has a negative health impact on people, especially the women and children who are in the kitchen during the cooking. And that has immediate impacts on respiratory illnesses, all the way to midterm impacts such as cardiac issues, leading up to even, long-term impacts such as cancer. And all this is research that has been done by the Makerere Lung Institute to again identify and also, bring out the clear research and the data on the impact of health, of the smoke on our health as we cook. This data has also been backed by the World Health Organization and other international universities that have done thorough research to bring out and expound on this problem. Furthermore, the heavy reliance on firewood and charcoal is one of the main causes of deforestation in the country. And as a result, Uganda is losing her forest cover at an alarming rate. So we need to come up with immediate interventions aimed at reducing the heavy demand on firewood and charcoal. Another issue is that because of the high deforestation rates, we're having an issue of firewood scarcity. So the distances that women and children have to incur to collect firewood become longer and longer. That causes them to lose productive time that could have been used for their studies, and also that could have been, for instance, women to do something productive such as business. And you find there's also a lot of time, because these cook stoves are slow to light, slow to cook, slow to extinguish. There is a lot of time that is lost because you have to tend to the cook stove, and as a result, women and children lose a lot of that productive time. So again, additional data from the UBOS census report shows that, just to expound on this situation, we have about the main fuel for use in Uganda. We normally use firewood, and firewood on a national scale, about 64.5% of the population is using firewood to date. And if you expound that data, you also see that it's not only in the rural areas, it's also quite prevalent in the urban parts of the country. We also have charcoal that is being further to that. When we have charcoal, that's about 28.2%. Now, the firewood is used directly, but for charcoal, it has to be converted into you have to convert the fuel wood into charcoal. Now, the process of that conversion into charcoal is very wasteful, and as a result, you end up using even much more biomass, that a lot of biomass is wasted in the production of charcoal. That makes, to an extent, because firewood is directly being used, there's less wastage. But when you're looking at this percentage of 28.2%, you have to go back and factor in the amount of firewood or fuel wood that was used to produce this charcoal. And it becomes very, very significant, because we are looking at production rates, charcoal production rates of about 6 to 10%, which is quite very low. That means 90% of the fuel wood that is being used to produce the charcoal is being wasted. We also have electricity we also have electricity. We have biogas and other fuels that are being used for cooking. And however, these are still at a very low percentage, and interventions are being done to ensure that this percentage can increase. Then if you look at the distribution of fuels, of households that are using the fuels, the most prevalent is mostly the three-stone fire, which takes up a greatest chunk. About 42% of the whole population is using fuel wood, that is firewood, to cook using three-stone fires, and followed by the modern the sigiris, which go up for about 28%, and then you find then you have an improved cook stove that's going for about 90%. Then the rest fall within that small percentage, about the 1% for the solar and the biogas and the LPG and the electricity. That brings us to about 6%. So and that is at the household level. Now, what about when it comes to institutions? And just to note that institutions heavily rely on fuel wood, that is firewood, mostly to meet their cooking needs. And here we are looking at schools, health institutions, barracks and police and prison barracks. Now, when it comes to schools, we have close to 50,000 schools, and the number is still growing in line with our young population. Therefore, the demand for education services is increasing. As a result, there is also a corresponding demand for cooking energy in form of fuel wood. Now, if you look at the schools, you find about 99% of schools are using firewood for cooking, and the remaining 1% thereabout are using, an alternative in place of firewood. When it comes to health institutions, still it's about 75%, with some utilization of electricity and some utilization of charcoal. When it comes to barracks, A police barracks, it's 100%, and prison barracks, it's about 92%, with a little bit of other fuels. And here the other fuels are categorized as briquettes, LPG, and other, alternatives. Yes, so as a result of this, we are having a very high consumption of biomass that is attributed to cooking. So what are the national trends in cooking fuel? You see that, and this is data that is extracted from the most recent, again, a number of surveys that were conducted by UBOS from period of 1990 to 2025, with 2024-25 being the latest census report, but we've had a series of DHS surveys, national housing, and livelihood survey reports to provide us with data to create these trends. And here the trends show that still our demand on wood, whereas it's still significant, over the trend between 1990 to date, it's slowly reducing. However, the reduction is still not significant. It's still, it's a reduction, but it's not so significant. Then we also have our charcoal demand is growing at a steady rate. We have, sorry, apologies for that. Yes, we now have LPG, which has been introduced into the sector, and now it's also starting to grow. And then we have other fuels now. UBOS lumps other fuels, and this graph, takes up, it keeps taking on sharp tangents because at some point they lump LPG within other fuels, and other points they extract LPG. Sometimes they include electricity consumption, and as a result, the data keeps, again, what is categorized as other fuels keeps changing. However, we are also seeing a steady increment in the consumption of other fuels. So if I may ask, again, just to appreciate, what is clean and what does clean mean? We see a change, that word is being used interchangeably. There's another word that is used to mean improved. There is also a word, where we say modern cooking. There are also times when we refer to transitional fuels for cooking. So what do those three or four statements mean? Maybe I'd like to ask our journalists and our media personnel to maybe in the chat room just, share with us your understanding of what, these words mean: clean, modern, transitional, and improved, because they keep being used interchangeably. However, they all have different meanings and different contexts. So the World Health Organization defines clean fuels and transitional based on the probable health outcomes arising from the emission rates. So in the year 2027, about 2017, we concluded the development of international standards on clean cooking. And in this clean cooking, we were able to define the parameters for defining, clean cooking, and also come up with a grading system, what we call a tiering system. And here we look at the main parameters. We look at efficiency. And we look at efficiency. We also look at safety. It's not only that the cook stove has to perform very efficiently and super, power output. However, when you're using it, is it safe to use? When somebody touches it, are they going to get burnt? etc. The flames should not be, posing a health risk. The surface of the cook stove should be warm enough to allow somebody to touch it and handle it when they are cooking. It should not have very sharp ends that cause it to, cut you, but also it should be stable so that when you're cooking, it doesn't tip and allow and let the fuel spill over. So we came up with, again, parameters for defining cook stove quality and clean cooking, what that would mean. And the international standards, ISO standards, categorize it in form of a tiering system. And here we are looking at the carbon monoxide that is emitted, and also we're looking at the particulate matter that is emitted. So here you see, when you start, the ISO tiering system starts from 0, and 0 being the lowest, the worst quality of a cook stove, all the way to tier 5, and tier 5, which is green, being the highest quality of the cook stove. So what does that mean? That in green, the acceptable fuels, the technologies that are having a tier 5 rating have carbon monoxide, acceptable quantities of carbon monoxide emission and particulate matter emission. And you see the emissions also go hand in hand with the efficiency, because the stove is performing better by burning more of the fuel rather than letting it be lost out in form of smoke and matter and carbon matter. So you find the higher the efficiency, naturally, the better the carbon monoxide, the lower the carbon monoxide and the particulate matter, emission rating. So what do we want to see? Currently, we have stoves on the market that rate at 0. For example, our cook stoves, our 3-stone fire cook stoves. So you find majority of our cook stoves in Uganda are within the tier 0 to tier 2 rating. Now, what we want to ultimately achieve is tier 5. Now, how do we achieve tier 5? We also appreciate that we may not achieve tier 5 immediately. So we have said, in the meantime, let us have a transitional option. What are transitional options? So currently, if you look at the combustion of biomass, solid, and here I'm specifically speaking about solid biomass in form of firewood and charcoal, the emissions on carbon monoxide and particulate matter are still relatively higher in comparison to other cooking solutions. So here we are looking at shifting the technology that's being used for biomass from the current 0 or 1 to a better level, say, tier 4 and tier 5. But ultimately, we want to see a shift to modern cooking solutions that use that have a high tier rating, have very high efficiency, and have very low carbon monoxide and particulate matter emissions. So how do we define these statements? So you find we have categorized clean cooking solutions in line with their emissions performance measurements. Now, it doesn't mean that every stove that uses firewood is a bad stove. No, that is not true. We've seen very, very efficient modern cook stoves that are still using firewood. But how do we categorize? So the World Bank has a multi-tier framework for energy access where it categorizes, it tiers, technology based on about 6 parameters. It looks at exposure, it looks at efficiency, convenience of use, availability, safety, and affordability. In other words, in addition to the efficiency of the cook stove, the fuel of the cook stove should be available. The cooking product should be available. The cooking solution should be convenient for you to use, but the solution should be affordable and accessible and also safe to use. So in addition to the 4 parameters that were built on by the ISO standards, the World Bank had introduced other additional, parameters such as convenience of use, availability of fuel, and affordability. Because you can have a very wonderful, beautiful product, but it's very expensive, and it's probably situated in another country. It cannot be accessed. So still, you will not have access in the country that you are looking at. Then the World Bank tiering system also categorizes what modern energy cooking services refer to, what we regard to as modern cooking solutions. And here we are looking at a context that meets the standard of tier 4. Here we are saying, 1, is it efficient to use? Is it convenient to use? Is the fuel available? Is it safe to use? Is it affordable? And what are the exposure emissions? And we are looking back to the how it's, the carbon monoxide and the particulate matter. Now, when we look at those categorizations, we find we have most of the electric cooking solutions fit into that category once there's access to electricity and access to, so we see most of the modern cooking solutions such as electricity, biogas, bioethanol, and even LPG, depending on how clean the cook stove is, fits into the higher tier of, the modern cooking solution category. Now, we have the improved cooking services. And here we are looking at the cook stove that's, your typical cook stove where it's having an efficiency of about 10%, but it's still not clean enough. Now, in that, we are saying what we want to do is, if I may just share my next slide, we want to shift from what you see as tier 0. If you look at this next slide, my tier 0 cook stove with reference to charcoal stoves, that is what we regard as a tier cook stove. So we want to shift from what you have as a tier cook stove, tier 1, tier 2, to a tier 3 cook stove at least, tier 4 and tier 5. Now, when it comes to biomass cooking, we want to shift the population that are currently using all these cook stoves. And by a certain time, which we have given ourselves, by 2030, we want to ensure that all these cook stoves are not in the market, but we now have locally produced tier 3 and above cook stoves on the market. After observing that tier 3 cook stoves have at least a much better acceptable carbon monoxide and particulate matter rating. So in this tiering system, I'm giving you an example of where the cook stoves typically would fall. You find most of the typical biomass cook stoves that we are using today following under tier 1, tier 2, tier 0, 1, and 2. Then you find the modern cooking solutions now. You find the biogas and the bioethanol would typically fall under tier 4 and 5, and electricity actually going in higher tiers. So when we developed the ISO standards, we stopped at tier 5 at a 50% efficiency. But now we have very efficient electric cook stoves that have efficiencies that go up to even 90%. However, the tiering system is stopping at 5%. So also we are going back to revise the tiering system so that we can, show a better representation of electric cooking in the cooking tiering system landscape. So what are the barriers to clean cooking access? One of the biggest barriers is finance, as you're aware. Access to finance by the private sector, but also, the lack of again, friendly and, typical workable financing mechanisms and systems that end users can use to increase access to financing. So for instance, today, if I want to buy a cook stove, I'm going to have the cash up front. And, we have few cases of pay as you go, unlike the solar sector. So it's mostly upfront, or it's mostly upfront, although we're coming up with systems so that people can have higher purchase and more of a pay-as-you-go system. Yeah, so what we see that as a big barrier, given that people's household incomes are relatively low in line with the upfront cost of these solutions. Another very important barrier is awareness, and I think that ties in with today's discussion. The public is not aware about, again, let's go back to the real problem. Sometimes the public is not even aware. You've seen generations of using firewood, straight from your great-grandmother all the way to your mother, and even today possibly, and you have no problem with that. You're okay with that. The food, according to you, the food is tasting very nice. Everything is working perfectly. The fuel wood seems to be accessible to an extent, so there's no problem. Now we are coming to tell you, hey, do you know that the cause of your cough has actually been the smoke that you've been inhaling? Do you know that that continuous exposure is not good for your health? It affects the children, it affects the pregnant mothers, and so you find most people don't know the negative impacts of cooking with dirty fuels. But even those that know the negative impacts sometimes don't even have information or access to solutions, the cleaner solutions, where to find them, where to access them, how they work, and all that information. In addition, there is also, again, the standards, the quality of the cook stoves, which is an intervention that the ministry is working very closely with UNBS, and also the high cost of alternatives. Like I told you, if I go back to this diagram of mine, the lower tier cook stove, tier 1, is going for about 3,000, 5,000 shillings. Similarly, tier 1, tier 0 and tier 1 probably up to 5,000 shillings, up to 510. Then tier 2, you're going to about 20,000. Tier 3, it's still increasing. If you go to tier 4, you're spending around 190,000. Tier 5, you're spending around 300,000 shillings. So you find, the higher you go, the higher the cost of the appliances, and that serves as a very big barrier. Furthermore, the fuels, you find, you're buying charcoal, you can access charcoal every day, charcoal of 2,000 shillings every day, but you cannot access LPG of 2,000. You need to buy a whole cylinder up front, but also if you're refilling it, you have to refill it when it's done, and normally that's at the end of the month, and you're incurring a significant cost. A 13-kilogram cylinder goes for about 120,000 shillings. If you don't have that 120,000 shillings on you at that time, you won't be able to have gas for cooking. Yet the charcoal guys have figured it out. They have made it very easy. They'll give you charcoal of 2,000 shillings. And indeed, our research shows that the majority of Ugandans that use charcoal, the majority of households that use charcoal, actually purchase it on a daily basis. So if you do not have a fuel alternative that one can access on a daily basis, that becomes a big barrier. Another thing is, again, access. I've gone to areas like Bushenyi, whereby there is a cylinder 30 kilometers away. There is somebody selling gas, but when the gas runs out, he has to travel to Ishaka district, actually from Mitoma. There wasn't a gas refilling, so one had to travel from Mitoma to Ishaka, which was another around 30 kilometers, just to refill the gas, and they had to pay an additional 20,000 shillings to the border. So on top of the 110, you have to add 20,000 shillings, and those small things become barriers. Yet for charcoal, you simply just walk to Mama Jindi, just 1 kilometer, about even 100 meters away from you, and the charcoal is accessible. So those are the barriers that are affecting adoption of clean cooking. So what is the Clean Cooking Policy Environment Framework? The Clean Cooking Policy Environment Framework is governed by a number of strategies, programs, and policies of the government of Uganda. And here I would like to start with Vision 2040, which looks at, of course, growing our economy to an upper middle income economy, and recognizing that energy is a driver of socio-economic development and livelihood improvement. And here, clean cooking contributes to our livelihoods. Also, it's in line with our, again, our electricity access programs. Furthermore, I'd like to talk about our National Development Plan. That was the third plan, and also the current fourth plan, which has maintained the need to increase the share, to increase the share of clean cooking to 50%, but also to reduce the share of biomass energy that is used for cooking. And here, what do we mean? By reducing the share of biomass energy, we are simply saying that as you're using that biomass energy, because you're using very wasteful technologies, if you used efficient cooking technologies, you're definitely using less fuel to meet the same energy need. You're also using, if you have more efficient charcoal production, you're using less fuel to produce the charcoal, and henceforth the overall share of biomass would reduce. Another thing is we want to increase the clean energy, to 50, the clean energy that we're using for cooking to at least 50%. Another thing that this ties in with the need to increase our per capita electricity consumption, which currently stands in line with our energy policy. It stands at about 215 units per annum. So we want to increase the utilization of our electricity and how do we want to use that, to do that by using efficient electric cooking solutions. And here the target is to achieve at least 578 kilowatt hours per annum, or units per annum. Then also we have the clean cooking fits under the Sustainable Energy Development Program and is also aligned with Agenda 2030. That's SDG 7. It's aligned with a number of SDGs, but the most profound one is the SDG 7 on increasing energy access. But it aligns with the SDGs on climate action, on health, on zero hunger, and on improving jobs and on gender. So in addition, the policy and regulatory framework is on the Electricity Act due to the opportunity that clean cooking with electricity provides in increasing electricity consumption. It's also in line with the energy policy. The energy policy has set targets for us to achieve at least 80% clean cooking access by 2040. It's also in line with the attendant climate change policy Act and regulations, which look at the climate mitigation and adaptation opportunity of clean cooking. So under our nationally determined contributions, clean cooking under the energy sector, most of the interventions look at reducing the impact of firewood deforestation by promoting clean cooking solutions and alternatives. We also have a number of policies that are being developed, such as the National Biomass Energy Strategies, the Energy Transition Plan. We also have a National Clean Cooking Plan and Strategy. We have a biogas strategy in place. But overall, we are developing a national integrated clean cooking program and strategy. What does that mean? We have the opportunity, in LP, in gas, we have the opportunity in electricity, in biogas. How are we ensuring that we are not only developing a clean cooking solution for urban areas, but we're also developing for rural and leaving no one behind? How are we ensuring that we are utilizing the resources that are available? For instance, where we have ethanol available, are we ensuring that we are utilizing it, to the fullest to ensure that all the people in that area are being served by that solution? Similarly, with those with electricity access. So it's through this integrated clean cooking program that we will be able to deliver that using, a mix of clean cooking solutions to achieve clean cooking access in the shortest time possible. So what is the ecosystem around clean cooking? In the center, we have the Ministry of Energy that provides, whose mandate is on clean cooking because of the energy implication. And in the Ministry of Energy, we have the Clean Cooking Unit that serves to implement and do the coordination with all key sectors. And who are the sectors in the sector? Who are the actors in the clean cooking sector? We have our development partners who have mostly developed technology, piloted, and have developed mostly proof of concepts. We've had civil society organizations that have supported and worked with communities and culture and faith-based institutions to increase awareness, to also demonstrate to the public, and also, serve as a go-between between government and the public. We also have other governments, agencies, and departments. Clean cooking is not only an energy solution. Clean cooking is a climate solution, as I've mentioned. It is a health solution as well, and it's a livelihood solution because you're touching on people's livelihoods when you're looking at productivity, but also the opportunity for employment. So we have the ministries of environment, we have the ministries of gender, the Ministry of Internal Affairs when you're looking at prisons, the Ministry of Education. We also have the ministry. I mentioned the Ministry of Environment. So all those ministries have a role to play when it comes to clean cooking. And therefore, it's important that you coordinate with them through an interministerial, engagement. We also have the private sector. And of course, recognizing that the private sector is the source of the technology and is the source of the financing. Most of the financing is going to come from the private sector. We have the consumers. Now, no matter how beautiful and efficient the solution is, for as long as it's not meeting the consumer needs the solution will not be taken up. So the consumers are very critical in ensuring that we design solutions that are usable for them and can prepare food that is acceptable and tasty for them. We also have the communities of practice on research and academia now. We've seen an evolution of clean cooking solutions from the lower tier to the higher tier, and that has been borne by a lot of research. In the past, we used not to use electricity for cooking because we were using these hot plates that were very electricity consuming. Actually, when your bill was very high, when you'd call Umeme in the early days, Umeme would say, no, the problem is you're using electricity for cooking. You need to stop. But actually, the reason was because you are using a very inefficient cooking system. That hot plate is very, very wasteful. It is actually, one could even rate it at the level of these typical sigiris when it comes to, the efficiency and the wastefulness. However, but through research and development, we've had very highly efficient and time-saving appliances that use electricity for cooking, and such as the electric pressure cookers and the electric induction cookers. And this only came into place because of academia research supporting this. We also have institutions that have supported the private sector in product development and testing and development to improve innovation and improve the development of technology. All that also falls under these communities of practice. Yes, so what is our strategy on cooking? When we talk about clean cooking, we see a scenario whereby, given the opportunities on LPG, given that government starts to produce its own gas, we are told effective 2026, government will produce its own gas. So therefore, we see the opportunities in promoting gas for cooking, and we see a scenario within the short term, we see a short to medium term, we see a scenario where at least 30% of the population is accessing is having access to clean cooking using LPG. Then we also have we are seeing a scenario given that we have about 2 million households that are connected to electricity. We are seeing a scenario whereby at least 18% of the population, those that have access to electricity, are actually cooking with electricity. Also, in line with our livestock numbers and initiatives aimed at water management on the upstream side, we see an opportunity for the biogas technology. And also recognizing that the biogas will not only give you the gas, it will give you the slurry for cooking. So we are seeing about 10,000 systems currently in place today. However, we see an opportunity for over 30,000 systems in 2023. We see opportunities for bioethanol. Where is the bioethanol coming from? The bioethanol is coming from locally produced cassava. So in addition to cassava for cooking, to cassava for starch, cassava for industrial production, we are also producing cassava for energy so that we can have more productive land rather than having our land idle. So one of the interventions that we are working with the agricultural ministry is to support the raising, the growing of cassava to support the energy bioethanol sector. We are also looking at the briquette and pelleting value chain, recognizing that as our agro-industrial production grows and this is a national priority and program of NDP 3 and 4, we are seeing opportunities of waste being generated. That waste is not a waste in the energy sector. That waste is a welcomed resource, and we're seeing opportunities for briquette production and pellet value chains to substitute firewood and charcoal. Now, overall, with bioenergy, we see at least 10% access. Yes, and then eventually we see, and here we are looking at what we can do within the next 10 years. Then eventually, under our energy transition scenarios, we see a slight shift, that brings us to about 2040. In 2040, we see that our electricity access has increased, and since our electricity access is increasing, we're also seeing, we'll definitely expect an increment in the population using electricity for cooking. So ultimately, by 2050, we see more predominant reliance on electricity, on LPG, and the cleaner forms of bioenergy, such as the biogas, the bioethanol, being the most predominant, instead of the typical traditional firewood and charcoal that we have today. So what are the interventions that we are talking about? I spoke about cooking with electricity, and the technologies that we are promoting for electricity. We are promoting very efficient electric pressure cookers. These are super technology that use pressure cooking, are heavily insulated, and have an automatic control system. So once the system, you turn it on, once it brings the water to boil and the pressure builds up, it automatically disconnects the power and the cooking continues under pressure. As a result, you end up using very little electricity for cooking. We are seeing opportunities for cooking in the household sector. And here on the left, I've just shared a picture of a recent campaign that took place in Nuero. And again, through the leadership of the National Renewable Energy Program platform, we have a national campaign aimed at promoting the use of electricity for cooking. And here we are working with the clergy, we are working with, the influential change makers and champions, the politicians, all the leaders in the public, so that they can preach the message about clean cooking. And indeed, it would be a wonderful opportunity for us to work with the private sector, with the media to enable us, again, package this information better and reach, the grassroots. We want to leave no one behind, to ensure that whoever has electricity can cook with electricity. On my right is, this is a cooking solution that was installed in Kina Keitaka Primary School in, I think this is one of the refugee hostings areas that's in Changwali district. And this cook stove, this is an electric cook stove that uses electricity for cooking in schools. So we are also seeing the opportunity to promote electric boilers in schools, as well as very big electric pressure cookers. What we are seeing is, at the household level, a household can use about 1 to 2 units of electricity for cooking only. So we are seeing massive changes and households saving time and, being more productive as a result. And also we are seeing reductions in the use of charcoal and, very slight increments in electricity. Of course, what you would have used in charcoal, you're using about 20% of it on your electricity, and you're able to save the rest of it. Yes, so I think okay, here we go. Yes, if I can share, this is a population of grid-connected customers, and I'm just sharing data that we got from the Electricity Regulatory Authority in 2023. This population keeps growing, and all these households qualify for cooking with electricity. We are also seeing that government is having, special interventions to increase access to clean cooking with electricity. Our grid access currently stands at about 25.3%. We are seeing that the domestic and consumer and the commercial customers categories are using about, the same amount of electricity, and we're seeing that about 2 million households qualify to use electricity today. Government has put in place a domestic tariff to encourage the public to use electricity. And how does this work? It means that when you have used up to 80 units of electricity, from unit 81 to unit 150, those are about 70 units, they'll be provided to you at about 413 shillings. That's in a bid to support households to increase their electricity consumption and use that electricity for cooking in place of using charcoal. We have very high electricity access numbers for urban areas and standing at about 49%. Similarly, just in Kampala alone, we are reporting electricity access of about 90.5%. So promoting the use of electricity for cooking with a focus on Kampala, Greater Kampala and urban areas would be very key in ensuring increasing our electricity access. Actually, we regard that as a low-hanging fruit. Okay. Yes. So what other clean cooking solutions are being promoted? I mentioned biogas solutions. This on my extreme left is a domestic biogas system. That's what we call a fixed dome system. Then to my right is a tubular digester, and above is a biogas cook stove. And this is a beneficiary of a biogas cook stove that we supported in Sembabule district. As I also mentioned, government is promoting the use of ethanol for cooking, and here we are looking at over 10,000 stoves. To date, over 10,000 stoves have been distributed, but we see the opportunity for at least 500,000 stoves in 2033. Sorry, my presentation keeps... I don't seem to be moving my... Okay, sorry. Yeah, as I come to a close of my presentation, I just want to talk about the other interventions that the government of Uganda has put in place to increase access and affordability. As you're aware, there is the national the free cylinder program of government. This free cylinder program aimed and targets to achieve at least 1 million cylinders. And here it started its implementation by 2021. It was affected by COVID. However, we still have a number of interventions that have been done. And here we have over 50,000 cylinders that have been distributed today. And here what government gives is what we call it a kit. And this is a 13 kilogram cylinder and a 2-burner cook stove and a connecting hose, pipe to connect the system. And here government gives this to you free of charge. All the public needs to do is pay 100,000 shillings for the gas that is inside. So we are working with the gas providers such as Starbucks, Total and Shell, who provide the gas. Hence, you have to pay the 100,000 shillings for the gas, and that starts you off. And that came in place because of the need to, again, address that upfront system, upfront issue. We saw that households could not access the gas just because of the cost of the system. And indeed, we are seeing an increment in the consumption of LPG for cooking. Through a private-public partnership, government established a 40-litre per day ethanol facility in Woya district, and this is with Bukona Agro Industries. And here we are producing cook stoves. This has a facility capacity to produce at least 1,000 cook stoves a month, and also produce this ethanol. This has been very successful to the extent that we are now, this company is not only supporting the country with providing ethanol for cooking, it is also exporting ethanol to countries like Tanzania and Rwanda and Kenya. So we are seeing the big opportunity. Government of Uganda has provided incentives, through tax incentives, and these are aimed at, again, making it easier for the private sector to bring this technology in the country, but also reducing that burden on the end user overall. So where are the opportunities? We want to encourage as much local production and manufacturing. So we have waived off all taxes on, all customs duty on local manufacture, on the importation of parts into the country, parts that are used for local assembly of cook stoves into the country. So please communicate that to the private sector, that this is an opportunity that they can take advantage of. Similarly, we have waived VAT and excise duty on ethanol in a bid to make it more affordable. This is ethanol strictly for cooking and for energy uses. And how we distinguish it, we require that you denature it. Once you denature it, it cannot be used for any other use apart from the energy application. That is how we are able to ensure that our taxes are actually going to the energy sector and not being abused, but also we are able to ensure that the ethanol that is being used for the energy sector is not, abused by people who can drink it, accidentally. Yeah, we also have a number of incentives such as biogas technology. For biogas, we have waived off VAT on all biogas, but for the tubular digesters, we've also waived import duty to ensure that it is more affordable. Then government is having programs, subsidies aimed at increasing clean cooking access by in reducing the upfront cost of technology. So through our energy company called Uganda Energy Credit Capitalization Company, and through support of the World Bank funded Electricity Access Scale-Up Program, government is implementing a results-based fund. And in this results-based fund, for the technologies that meet the minimum performance requirements, government is able to subsidize the cost of the technology by up to 50% and 60% for in some instances. And here we are looking at reducing the upfront cost. So for instance, we've seen the market price of cook stoves for companies that are participating in programs like this come down from 300,000 to about 150,000. And indeed, we are seeing very high uptake. That's on the demand side. However, do the companies have access to finance? Another component is to provide these companies with affordable financing and, guarantees to ensure that they can have more, borrowing capacity and bring in more, continuously supply, the technology on the market and ensure that, it never runs out. So what are the additional challenges? One big problem is effective coordination and of course, looking again reiterating that clean cooking does not only fall on the energy side of things. Therefore, there is a need to have an interministerial coordination. There's a need to have a very strong collaboration with the development partners who have brought also additional financing actually into the sector. There's also a need to collaborate with the private sector and also the end users to ensure that we are designing the right technologies that meet their cooking requirements. Another thing is private sector strengthening. We are as good as our private sector. So there is no sector that can be better than its private sector. And therefore, we want to strengthen the private sector by providing them with access to finance, to support them in innovation and technology. We also want to support them to grow the value chains. How? Through capacity building and through infrastructure development. For instance, must one have to, if I want ethanol, must it come from Nuoya district? Can we have, establish the infrastructure for ethanol production in the country. In addition, to that, the LPG and other, supply value chains. Another very important thing is data and information, both for communication, for learning and decision making. So there's been a bit of a discrepancy in our data. It starts from just the way we defined clean cooking, modern cooking, improved cook stoves. Just that alone changes the way that data is captured. You find your boss is asking, what is your main fuel for cooking? What if I use, in our current cooking situation in Uganda, we use an assortment of fuels. We call that stacking. So when I'm stacking and you ask me, what is your main fuel for cooking? What would be the appropriate answer for a layperson? That would be hard. And just
Yes, so Justine's presentation is hanging, but
why
let's
can't
allow
you
her
probe
to
further
continue.
and ask what other fuel are you cooking with?
Yes,
Sorry, I dropped off, but that was my last slide. So thank you very much.
it was actually interesting. We can allow you to complete the slide through explanation. because it links back to the media and call for action. I'll wrap it up in a minute, then we proceed. Thank you.
Okay, I was saying, I think I was speaking about the need for the data systems and knowledge management. It's very important. We don't have that data. I think that's what has made it hard for us to communicate with even the media, because of course you need you need this information, you need such you can communicate, effectively to through the right channels and the right recipients of this information. But if it's not there, then it even makes it hard for the media to report. So we really want to work and ensure that we get the right data, but communicate it, well to the right recipients of this information. We're also looking at the need for investment. We want to mobilize more investment into the sector. And what investments are we looking at? We were looking at climate financing, carbon financing, and other forms of green financing. We're also looking at concessional financing and working with the private sector, the commercial banks, to again provide affordable and accessible financing portfolios for the clean cooking sector. Yeah, I think that's all I had to say, and thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Ms. Justine Akumu. It was really a wonderful presentation, very insightful with quite a lot of data for take home. I posted in the chat that after this session, every participant who wishes to continue the journey up to the 6 months will be able to share with us what they have learned from today's session as we begin the transition and assisting media to report with facts. Yes. Let me call upon, as you take a rest, before we get to the Q&A sessions, I would love to call Derek to make a presentation of a video that we've recorded in one of the activations we had. Justine, you can stop sharing the screen. We've asked some colleagues who cannot speak directly to the microphone to actually type their questions in the chat so that I could read. Colleagues in the chat are asking us to share a presentation. I want to confirm it to you that the presentations are going to be shared because these are going to be your reference materials. So, the presentation, you've uploaded the presentation, please share with us via email so that we can disseminate to the trainees. Thank you. Over to you, Derek.
As matoke, posho, beans, meat, millet flour, and others in just a few minutes with little electricity consumption. And to make cooking easier, Modern Energy Cooking Services prepared an e-cooking book for Uganda. Switch to cooking using an electric pressure cooker and enjoy reduced energy costs. For more information, contact us on Did you know that firewood and charcoal remain the main source of energy for cooking in Uganda, accounting for over 90% of the energy balance? However, this dependency has negative impacts on the environment and public health. But there is a solution. Introducing the electric pressure cooker supported by the government of Uganda and its partners. This innovative, efficient cooker can prepare a wide variety of local dishes such as matoke, posho, beans, meat, millet flour, and others in just a few minutes with little electricity consumption. And to make cooking easier, Modern Energy Cooking Services prepared an e-cooking book for Uganda. Switch to cooking using an electric pressure cooker and enjoy reduced energy costs. For more information, contact us on
Thank you so much, Derek, for the video you've just shared with us. And thank you, Justine, for the wonderful presentation. I see thumbs up and appreciations from colleagues in the chat. I'm happy that it has intrigued thinking, and I believe that now we can communicate with some basic statistics that has been shared here. As we move forward in these training programs, the remaining 5 weeks and the exposure visits, you'll be able to understand why we need to really transition from cooking with tradition and modern cooking methods. If there are colleagues who want to speak, I can give chance. If you raise your hand, I can give you chance to about 3 questions, but the others, you can place them in the chat box so that we get Justine to respond to that. Thank you so much. I've not noted any questions. Do we assume that we've all understood what Justine was presenting? And also, Derek, you can share a link to that video. Maybe some colleagues may want to reference it during their blogs and maybe the articles they're writing. So please, in the chat, you can add the link, but because we also have the email addresses, we'll be able to share all that, the recording and the session resources for you to be able to undertake all this. So, well, we just have a request from Norman, Justine, that's requesting you to elaborate more about LPG. So maybe the terminology LPG that is not yet clear for them, maybe in just a minute. Can you elaborate more about what LPG is so that the Norman clearly understands what that is? Thank you.
Dear Maria, I could respond to Norman if that's okay. I don't know whether Madam Justine has dropped off.
Apologies, Maria. I feel like I had frozen. I couldn't hear you.
Okay.
Okay,
And
but
let
me, if you can hear me now, I just want to allow me to share my screen very quickly. And just as I elaborate what LPG is, yeah, and again, thank you very much for that question. And we've always said, I guess we are the worst I am the worst communicator. I will say LPG and assume everybody knows what LPG is. That's why we want the media to package this information better than we do, because the way we do it is not effective enough. For instance, what I mean by LPG is gas, what we call cooking gas. Gas wo kufumba. My Uganda is improving. Yeah. So here we are looking at this gas. We have small cylinders, like what Total is giving to the left here. This is, I think it's more of a 6 kilogram cylinder. We also have what Shell here sells a whole set. And then we also have, if you can see, I don't think a sound of government, but in my presentation, I was able to show the cylinders that government is sharing. So yes, what you guys call as gas, and maybe I would like to extend the question to you and just ask you, is how do you call it, and what would how would you call it, and what would be the best way to refer to this to avoid confusion, to a lay person? Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Justine, for sharing and elaborating what the LPG actually is. I see more questions coming through the chat, but also when you went off, I was asking Nelson to chip in and maybe supplement. I'm glad that he has managed to join the call. Nelson, I can give you just a few minutes because I saw you trying to run your audio to make a submission. It will be helpful to hear from you also today. Thank you.
Maria, thank you so much. I'm unable to turn on my video at the moment, but I think Justine has already given a very good overview on the whole clean cooking background and overview. I want to thank you and everyone that has attended this training. For me, I think what matters most now is how we translate what has been talked about. The technical aspects of clean cooking, how do we now communicate that in a layman's language, in a voice that is very easy to understand? And mainly it's about breaking down the science because the data is too much, but how can you communicate, for example, that 90% of the people cook with biomass, for example? How do you communicate the standards set by World Health Organization to someone that does not understand the units, the megajoules and all that? So I believe that as we move forward, we shall be able to actually have people come up with actually different approaches on how they will be communicating this. And I look forward to the next training sessions with you. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, Nixon. Actually, as you are speaking, one of our colleagues says that malo, that's a local word, malo, can't allow us to use gas. I am a coward. So reading from that, how do we address such attitude cases that really come up? Yes, it's coming from one of our colleagues in the media, but also it could be a representation of other colleagues who are not here on the call, but need to read and listen through media about information on clean cooking. Over to you, Justine.
Yeah, thank you for those wonderful questions. So should we call it shale gas now, or should we call it gas walk fumba? So that I don't want to call it LPG again. I just want to. Or can I call it gas? Okay, gas. Okay, yes. Although some people are agreeing that they call it LPG, but I think I've also had most people call it gas. So I think we'll maintain it as gas. However, I think the question is, how can there are issues of safety. And indeed, what we're doing as the ministry, first of all, we are ensuring that we design these cook stoves. For instance, the gas cookers, they have controls, they have safety controls to ensure that one, they're self-igniting, but also the gas, it has a smell. They leave that smell in there deliberately so that you can smell any gas leaks and you can detect it early as possible. And as the ministry, we are working very closely again through awareness campaigns to educate the public on issues of safety, how to safely use the gas, because yes, you've gotten it. How do you slight it? How do you use it? Where do you refill from? Packaging that information out to the public and, to help them, again, demystify that concern and worry that it's not safe to use, the food won't taste nice, and that and you find mostly people, actually, we see that there are people who can afford the gas. It's not that it's expensive. We're actually seeing that if you can use charcoal in Kampala today, then you can use gas, because the charcoal is very, very expensive in Kampala. So if somebody in Kampala can use charcoal, they can use gas. If they are not using it, it's because they don't know about its benefits and they don't know where to find it from. That's why I'm glad we are having this discussion, so that we can package this message and we can work with you to communicate to the public about this gas that government of Uganda really wants. Now, where is the gas coming from? Currently, the gas is being imported, but with the production of our first oil next year, Uganda will join other countries in being the first, in being one of the gas producing, countries. And here we are seeing the opportunity for us to promote this gas for cooking. And we also estimate, we are certain that the cost of the gas will be much lower than what we are currently importing it at. So we see that as a very big opportunity for the public, for the private sector, but also to work with, the public, communicate to them through the media so that they can use these, this gas. Gas. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Justine. I have a contribution from Dr. Mukisa, because we are now trying to make communication very clear. He says that we will keep the gas because it's widely known, but I believe it was good for you. And like now, this is more of a response that is coming in, that we want to relay the message that it is gas, but it is good, like when you're writing through media, to make sure that we communicate with the right text. So some colleagues are saying, yes, let us call it liquid petroleum gas, so that actually people understand. Though Tenyo Isaac is saying LPG, can it kubobeze toke? We can clarify on all that. I also have a question. Thank you. Actually, we are seeing in a blend of local messaging and also maybe the English, which is also good depending on the media house you're representing. Okay, a question here. We are left with about 20 minutes to wrap up. So please keep the questions in, but at the end of the day, we will be, because it's a continuing session, we'll be able to answer some via chat. I saw some members requested for our WhatsApp group. There is already a group that was running of climate change journalists. We may not create parallel groups, but just add members and continue that talk. Clean cooking, all renewable energy is part of the discussion in climate change. So we can keep that discussion and just add new members based on your consent. Justine, are the pressure cookers available for purchase in the market? If so, where can they be found? We have seen government initiatives struggle to reach the ground. So clarify on the accessibility. This would be helpful. I would also request Dr. Mukisa to respond to that, in addition to Justine's response that would, when you're talking about the electric pressure cookers that you presented about. Thank you.
And I'd like to give Dr. Mukisa a go, then I'll come in to respond.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, Justine. That was quite informative. It was a wonderful presentation. I feel like organizing a class lesson for you to teach people about clean cooking. And we are honored to have you as a facilitator for this very first session. And I want to approach the team that selected you to be really the first tutor or facilitator for this discussion. I wanted to just put one first comment was about gas before I come to pressure cooker. Gas is a wide term that is used in this country that maybe everyone has heard about. So maybe starting to use LPG, many people will be confused, just like what has happened on this call. But the reason we are mentioning LPG or liquefied petroleum gas is to ensure that our journalists at the end of this session or this series, you know some of these terminologies, in that when you're writing or when you come across these words, you can easily differentiate one or two what they mean really. So that's why we're trying to emphasize, we are pointing out that gas, though we know it as gas, but its real name or how it should be defined should be liquefied petroleum gas. Not liquid, but liquefied, because it's a gas that is under high pressure. So when it's compressed, the gas state turns to liquid. That's why we call it liquefied petroleum gas. And someone was asking that they've not seen the yellow or the government gas cylinders. These cylinders are ongoing. This intervention began with Kampala, but lately it has been taken up country. We've had a drive in Mbarara. There was one in Guru. and the latest was in Kakumiro and Kikube and Fort Portal last week, if I'm right. So it's ongoing across the country, and Kampala was the first area that received, but now it's going up country. And also, someone asked whether whether gas can kuobeza toke. I think it's a matter of managing the gas knob. If you're just simmering, what simmering is kuobeza, you can reduce the gas knob to a bit low level, so that it's just keeping the water or the food warm rather than running at full capacity. Then about the pressure cookers. The pressure cookers, through the campaign, we have now several outlets across the country. Different private sector companies have opened up branches in the different cities of Uganda. But if you are, for those that are based in Kampala, we have several companies that are providing these technologies in Kampala. And also note that these technologies, these appliances come in different sizes and brands. So you may not have, we will not say that all of them cost, for example, 300. No, the price is dependent on the make, just like vehicles. Different vehicles have different prices, but also on the size of the pressure cooker you're procuring. And with that, we're also working with our private company partners to come up with a list of all these pressure cookers on market and their suppliers, so that it's easier for intended customers to access them. If, for example, if you want to find out from which particular, we don't know where you're based, but if you could tell us the location, we're happy to connect you to some of the agents or the suppliers in those areas to provide you with these technologies. I hope and then the last one, Madam Maria, before I hand over the microphone, is that I've noticed some of the colleagues are asking, some are saying they are worried, they are cowards about using these technologies. I want to give them assurance that we are planning to have a live demonstration where we shall use these technologies to cook these foods to ensure we address those fears they have at the moment. For example, using gas, using electricity to cook, in that they are able to communicate, but also share about their experiences using these technologies. So communication will be coming through on when and how this will be done, so that you can plan accordingly and attend in person, not to miss these live demonstrations. I do submit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nick. I just wanted to share this. Somebody asked about, on the chat, I saw somebody asked about the, I don't know if you can see my presentation, but these are the cylinders, the ones that are the yellow cylinders labeled GOU, Government of Uganda. In the several areas that they are being distributed, you simply go to your LC1 chairperson. There's a form where you fill in your details, you attach a copy of your national ID, and then once the LC1 chairman signs on that form, you walk with that form to a petrol station that has the gas cylinders. You give them that form and then pay only 100,000 shillings. That 100,000 shillings is for the gas in the cylinder. It is not for the cylinder. As I had said, government gives the whole cylinder kit, the starter kit, free of charge, but we are working with these companies so that they provide the gas, so that when the gas is over, you simply go back to the company and they refill. Starbucks, Total, and Shell. So once you go back, once you pick it, you pay your 100,000 shillings, you go take your gas home and you start to do your cooking. This program, again, Government of Uganda targeted to supply at least 1 million cook stoves, cooking kits, within 5 years. Unfortunately, we were affected by a number of issues, including COVID. However, it has gained momentum. Another thing is we expect that even with the first oil, we will have the production of these cylinders will continue, and now we'll be packing our locally produced gas. Also to note, these cylinders are being locally manufactured in Uganda to the best of standards. So these are locally produced interventions within the country. Thank you very much. I think also to I don't have much to say about electric pressure cookers regarding the pressure cookers. In addition to what Dr. Nick has said, I think Dr. Nick has covered it as comprehensively and as possible, and also noting that you're currently implementing a behavioral change, communication, and electric cooking and other modern cooking solutions such as LPG, biogas, so that we can communicate to the public and entertain and entice the public more to get these appliances. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yes, well, thank you so much for really elaborating on these different issues being raised. You can clearly see it is attitude. It is not any different from the research we've done. We are just really emphasizing that we can have behavior change in the community when we give the right information. So many questions are really coming up, but as I indicated, you can write a blog and invite maybe 1 or 2 people to participate in your blog as a media, because that's going to be the next exercise for you in the next 3 days. Talk to an expert to elaborate and also do some basic research to understand, as we've learned about the pressure cooker, what is it about? Then it will be very good for us to read your story and share with you more information, all critique, all that information that is coming up. So questions are still coming up. It's more pricing and so on. Well, what we can do to some of these questions that are really coming up, because we are going to add most of you to the WhatsApp group, like we've said, it would be good we discuss some of these questions there about the pressure cooker, talking about expenses and all that. How do you, there's a very good question here, how can we distinguish the actual pressure cookers in relation to clean energy from the ones made from Katwe and the like, or duplicates? So all those are questions of, yes, where do I purchase the pressure cooker? I know we'll have parting shots. Colleagues, the panelists, please have a chance to look through the chat. This will form some of your parting shots. On the assignment, Nantai Goretti, please reshare the question that has been posted, but we'll also emphasize that make sure that you're tagging the key players so that they can read and understand your message. The colleagues want to do videos. I've seen Chukomeko indicating that he wants contacts. These contacts will be shared, but if there is no other communication, I just want to do the last slide in just a minute. Hope this is it. Just to emphasize these key points, then we can have parting shots. I note that there is really good engagement from colleagues here, and that, like you can see on via the screen, what we have there is the picture, what we've been talking about, where we clearly want to transition from. So we want to typically transition from this environment of cooking with the 3 stones, open fires, being exposed. So why are we bringing this topic here for discussion? Why the national statistics? Now I'm trying to wrap up all your concerns. Why the national statistics matter? Because it seems like it is big data, but we need to understand that the patterns are based, like the power of demanding, according to Science Digest, why we demand for household fuels is based on like the availability of either wood fuel or vegetation. You can see that we've been getting like charcoal from the Western Central, because what we have there is densely, like there is dense vegetation, and yet you find that other areas are not gifted with vegetation. So why you see that statistics of why we are telling you that demand of biomass at 90%, are telling you that actually we want to reduce it to 50% in all the policies. It will give you a true scale. It will help you report on measurement. You can be able to compare progress if you have the right data. Because if you wrote a story now telling us that we are at maybe 20%, and within 5 years, this is where we want to go, maybe 5%, sorry, at 50%, you'll have data to communicate in your story. So that's why we are giving you this information. The presentations have been received, and because you registered to participate in this webinar, we'll have your email addresses. We'll be sharing all that information as we walk this journey. Then we have exposing you to gaps in policy implementation. You can clearly see that some questions were gaps in awareness and policy implementation. And when you have that statistics, you're able to report back and communicate rich stories. And what we have here, this is just an example from the Daily Monitor one time. So these are the stories we expect. You have to have, for example, a very intriguing picture relating to what you're communicating. So in this story captured in 2021, there was a communication from the Daily Monitor saying that government seeks to push usage of electricity for cooking. Imagine we've been talking about clean cooking, all use of electricity for cooking since 2001. And where are we at this point? So that's why we need to have data. If this data was not available, then we would say clean cooking has just started now. But here, Daily Monitor used the statistics of estimated like 9 out of 10 households in Uganda use firewood and charcoal. It means that gone ahead to research and they have data. Avoid communicating stories that are going to put you in a position which you cannot answer when someone asks you back. So that's why we have the Clean Cooking Unit, we have the National Renewable Energy Platform, and other players like the Uganda Alliance on Clean Cooking that we are working closely with in this project. So using statistics for media, it can be a credible foundation for reporting. You can peacefully talk about all these points. You can run your campaign on social media, a social media campaign, and those are some of the outputs we hope to see at the end of the day when the training is really completed. So when we share this presentation, what you can do, you can read the article from Modern Energy Cooking Services, where they published an article exploring electric cooking opportunities in Uganda. It will guide you on how to write back your assignment, then share it when you tag us. You can work with your editors, because the last, just to tell you, our last session will actually be with some of your editors and resource persons at your media houses, where we'll convene to a breakfast meeting. Yes, thank you so much. I wanted to just emphasize that from like how media can participate. Over to you, colleagues, my fellow panelists today, for your final remarks referring to the charts and also parting shots before the top of the hour, because the schedule is to end at midday. Thank you.
Nick?
Yes. Justine, you can come in first, then we can have Dr. Mukisa wrap up.
I guess, thank you very much for the discussion. I can see Mr. Tenywa Isaac is on the call. I just want to note that the ministry has engaged journalists in the past to again come up to work together to communicate to the public and have capacity building, and also have the right messaging, and having the right terminologies and the right communication, and communicating to the public what's happening, and at that point we even had a capacity building program. So for me, I hope we never had the opportunity to probe the public, the journalists, to ask them, what challenges do you face in reporting on on clean cooking solutions, in addition to data, and how can we, through the support of the National Renewable Energy Program, come in to address that. We look forward to receiving that information. And another thing is we took note that of the fourth estate as a good opportunity to do more communication. So where on our clean cooking program, so where we can, we look forward to promoting. There was a question about the brands of solutions, the brands of electric pressure cookers. Government doesn't promote brands, we promote technology. However, we want to communicate to the public what is a good quality product. So we're working together with UNBS to develop the standards. What we do when we develop the standards is, again, we have to communicate to the public what the standards mean. When you see an electric pressure cooker, are you able to tell that it's a good pressure cooker? Are you able to, even know information, get information about after sales and all that? And also, in addition to that, we are, in addition to the standards, we're actually developing a national label. So with this label, you'll be able to see the cook stove's quality basing on the parameters I mentioned: efficiency, emissions, safety, and durability. So we will work with the public, we'll work with the media to communicate to the public what those labels mean so that they can be guided in picking what a good brand would be, basing on its ability to meet and fall within that category of appliances. Yeah, this has been a very educational discussion on at government. In government, we do a lot of data collection, and even as I'm looking through this discussion, I'm wondering whether, I don't know if I packaged it right, because again, my data was a lot of graphs and figures. Yeah, so hopefully we can work with the media to build our capacity to communicate better to the public, and also, categorize our information in line with, the final recipient of this. Yeah, access to clean cooking is very low because of lack of awareness, and we therefore look forward to working hand in hand with the media to identify opportunities so that we can communicate better to the public about the benefits of clean cooking. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Justine, and thank you, colleagues on call. This has been quite a wonderful webinar. Having over 50 people in attendance from the start to the end, it means that what was shared or discussed was very, very informative and important to the audience. The first indication that what was shared is really good is also by the level of engagement generated from the presentation. So for me, as who is also a teacher, that tells me a lot about the class, and I will continue to applaud you, Justine, for being a wonderful teacher for that day. We've learned a lot. Thank you very much. Colleagues, we appreciate the comments, and I've asked one of my colleagues to see how we can extract all the questions that have been generated in the chat. We can further grow, build the answers, and we can even develop a dedicated page which has questions and answers. I think many companies have these kinds of, like, you're calling Airtel, they'll tell you some quick answers and questions for some generally asked questions. So we can generate this, and also ask Maria that we could even generate a questionnaire or feedback, like issues Madam Justine has been noting, like challenges journalists face in reporting on energy, where the shortfalls. Of course, this is a starting point, and we are starting with the cooking. But I know that this is going to grow to cover other aspects of energy, like productive use of energy, off-grid aspects. So I believe that from here we are growing, and it's my hope that we shall grow together. Thank you very much for being part of this discussion. Don't stop it here. We want to hear more questions so that you're informed, and when you go out to report, you have facts rather than speculations. And also we come in a position that government, media, and all of us in this space, we're not at war, but we are partners. So if there's information you need, please reach out to us to guide, so that you don't provide information or half-baked information that really will even raise questions about your journalism. We want to support you. Be a well-baked reporter on these subjects. We have a lot of information, like my colleague Justin said. We're not good at communication. That's not our area. But then we want to work with you so that there is a worthy reading product out there. There's a worthy watching product out there. We are happy to see it. We don't have to be mentioned by name, but we want to see a product that speaks to our aspirations and desires. So thank you very much. And on behalf of my team at the National Renewable Energy Platform, we appreciate your time, your data, and we pray that we walk this journey together. We want to see you by the end of these trainings as a we call it self-reliant and informed journalist that will really pick up this mantle and continuously publicize about clean cooking and of course the other facets of energy that will be bring up going forward. Thank you very much. And I don't know, I'll return it to the moderator to call the meeting to an end, and maybe if there are any other comments that she has to pass to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Mukisa, for wrapping that up, and also Justine, my colleague, for sharing these presentations. It is good to keep learning together, and I promise that we're going to walk this journey far with all of you if we stick to quality and timely reporting with facts. Next week, same time, we'll be having our second session, but as we promised, we wish to have a demo session, which will communicate maybe via the WhatsApp group and the specific date and the modality when that can happen. Requesting you to share via our email address, at least a communication, a takeaway from this session. That's how we are going to be doing our assignments. They're going to really be practical. We've shared the social media handles with you all. And even on the WhatsApp group, keep the questions coming in. Before we begin the next session, we'll be able to answer a few. But like you can see, we learn by doing. So even NREP is learning from you that we can actually create a very good fact sheet of responses in regards to clean cooking and any other opportunities like productive use of energy that may come through, and also delivering the next Renewable Energy Conference and Expo that will be also communicated where we want you to participate. Thank you all. Just within this last minute, allow me to close the session. We'll leave the link open for another minute so that you interact via a messaging, but we'll later also have open sessions where everyone has a chance to talk back to their colleague. Today it has really been a chat and speak, but we appreciate that we'll change quite a number of items in the some of the next upcoming webinars so that you're able to tell us how you feel by speaking directly to the moderators. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day. Thank you. Bye.
Maria, just before we close, could you tell colleagues that you've sent an invite to the group, the WhatsApp group, so they don't have to share the numbers, they just have to join live. Please mention that.
Yes, let me mention it to you. Colleagues who are typing in their numbers, sorry, it came to my mind a bit late, but I've shared a link to the WhatsApp group that has existed for about 3 years. Some colleagues have benefited from other media trainings. It's a network that is a bit silent, but we can rejuvenate it when we talk about clean cooking, renewable energy, and more aspects in climate change. So feel free to join the group and see you next Friday. Thank you so much.
My name is Dr. Nicholas Mukisa. I'm the Deputy National Coordinator for the National Renewable Energy Platform. And I'm also the Project Manager for the Behavior Change Campaign on Electric Cooking. This project intends to change the mindsets of our people. And through this campaign, we interact with these different segments of community. We have cultural institutions, we have religious institutions, we have academic institutions, we have local government, we have the general public and the schools. Actually, we also have the refugees as one of the other segments, refugee and host communities. But Buganda stands out as one of the biggest cultural institutions in this country. And it's the first cultural institution we have visited to present the project to the leadership of the kingdom, the Katiklo, the Luchiko ministers, and all the officials of the kingdom at all levels.
Kamayi Katiklo omusomo guno gwabakulembeze mu Bwakabaka bwa Buganda. Ab'amasaza, abakulira ebitongole, abakulembeze abali ku level zonna okutuuka ku batongole.
Mindset change requires concerted efforts from all authorities. Era nsaba Ssaabasajja asiime abaami baffe be tufumbira ettooke ebboobezi basiime balye ku ttooke erya gaasi, ettooke ery'amasannyalaze. Ssaabasajja Kabaka asiime.
We also acknowledge that Buganda, amongst the kingdoms in this country, is one that has lost significant forest cover. Natural forest cover has been lost in this land due to demand for firewood and charcoal. So we purposely came here, one, to align our interventions with what the kingdom is doing, Bulungi Bwansi, Ebira bya Kabaka, to see how we work together. And as you've heard, the Katiklo has alluded to that fact that the kingdom is ready to work with central government to advance these interventions and initiatives through the Ministry of Environment.
We therefore welcome the initiative and we are ready to sensitize the subjects of the Kabaka in these new ways of cooking. We pledge to use our systems through the clan system and through the administration system to ensure that we get the last mile all the subjects of the Kabaka as we champion these ways of doing cooking. Our Ministry of Environment is ready and willing to partner with the central government in this initiative. I hereby declare the launching of championing clean cooking. Chusa enfumbayo wetujja okutaasa obutonde bw'ensi. Ayi Mukama Katonda kuuma Ssaabasajja Kabaka.
The UK and the Uganda Kingdom have a very long history, more than 200 years of relationship. And we know that we're both cultures who really respect our traditions and cultures. Clean cooking and these kinds of changes are not just about the head, not just about technology, they're also about the heart. They're also about behaviors and mentalities. And in the case of cooking, they're also about the stomach. We need to be able to make the nice food. Like you can cook your matoke in an electric pressure cooker. You can cook your luombo in an electric pressure cooker. And we know that these cultural issues are really important if we're going to make this transition.
As you've seen, the Katiklo participated in the cooking. We had the Minister of Energy participate in the cooking, and the ambassador represented by Mr. Benjamin also participated in the cooking. And not only did they cook, they equally ate and served some of this food they've cooked. And from the feedback from all those that have tasted the food, they can't tell the difference of what is cooked using electricity against what is cooked using charcoal or firewood. And all of them have said the food was nice and wonderful. It's time saving, it's clean, and it saves energy as well. It uses very little energy to cook what we're cooking. All the leaders were represented here, or that represented the different structures, were given tools of championship, which is an electric pressure cooker, to go try these appliances at their homesteads and then speak about the plans from an informed position. In a very special way, we appreciate the UK government for considering Uganda and committing over £5 million to support interventions of promoting clean cooking in this country. We are very grateful and we look forward to continuous partnerships and advancements in different facets of energy in Uganda. Next week we are heading to Mbarara. We have an exhibition and stakeholder engagement in Mbarara where we are meeting with leaders at the different segments of community that I mentioned. That will be followed by a visit to Hoima, and then later in the month of March we'll be visiting the Bluri. Then in April we expect to have an interface with the Busoga Kingdom, and then we'll advance to Tororo. So we'll be interfacing with cultural institutions as well as the general public. And everyone is welcome to join us on this campaign.